I still remember the exact moment I pushed my kitchen chair back, my heart pounding so hard I thought it would burst out of my chest. The screen of my laptop cast a pale blue glow on my face, the silence in our small kitchen heavy all around me. 2 plane tickets filled the confirmation page. Round trip to Key West. 2 passengers. My son, 8-year-old Mason Green, and me. The click of the mouse in my ears was a declaration. It's over, Juliet. 3 years of living in the shadows ended today. 3 years ago, my husband, Ryan Green, was declared dead after a senseless accident during a business trip. There was no body, just a hasty report and a death certificate handed to me by an official who had perfected a look of practiced pity. I remember that day like a scar that has never stopped hurting. I was standing in this very kitchen, with Mason in my arms, when a trembling co-worker of Ryan's told me, "He's gone." I'm so sorry. I sank to my knees, feeling the world split open beneath me and swallow us whole. From that moment on, I lived like a ghost. I had loved Ryan with an intensity that made me forgive his constant travels, the late-night phone calls, and the growing coldness in his voice. He would tell me he was busy, that it was just a phase, that everything would change soon, but instead of getting better, he simply disappeared one day. From then on, I swore I would live for Mason. I sold my wedding ring to pay off part of the mortgage. I got a full-time job at a local bank branch. I refused to rest. Every minute was spent trying to fill the void I saw in my son's eyes. Mason didn't ask about his dad much, but when he did, every word was a dagger in my heart. Today, when I bought those tickets, I wasn't just buying a vacation. I was buying a promise to myself to move on, to smile again, to teach Mason that life isn't only about loss. I closed the laptop, leaned back in my chair, and let out a breath I felt like I had been holding for years. Mason came running in from the living room, a smile so big it lit up his whole face. As soon as he heard the word beach, he launched himself into my arms and hugged me tight. "You'll be happier there, right, Mom?" he whispered. I didn't know what to say. Maybe not. But there was one thing I was sure of. This was the start of something new. There was a time when my life looked like it came straight out of a magazine. Everything was perfectly framed. The love, the career, the family photos on the mantle. Ryan Green wasn't just handsome. He had that kind of natural charisma that made people lean in when he spoke. His quick wit could make me smile even on the toughest days. I met him when I was 25, working as a junior analyst at a bank in Atlanta. I was still trying to find my place in the world. He walked into the branch with a confident stride, as if he already knew every corner of the building. He asked about mortgage options, though his body language said he knew exactly what he needed. By the end of that meeting, I was completely captivated, and he knew it. We got married a year later. In the beginning, it was the kind of marriage that made my friends sigh with envy. Spontaneous hikes along the Appalachian Trail, dinners with red wine under the stars, road trips just because. Ryan was just getting into the world of venture capital, and he took off like a rocket. He quickly became one of the most talked about names at his firm. I felt proud walking next to him at company dinners, his arm around my shoulders, as if we were building something indestructible. Then came Mason, our miracle. I thought that would be the moment Ryan settled down, that he would trade late-night calls for bedtime stories, client dinners for family meals. But it was the opposite. He became even more absent, constantly traveling to close deals with investors in places I'd never even heard of. There were entire weeks when Mason barely saw his dad, except for a quick kiss on the forehead in the early morning. I'd pretend not to hear the front door close at midnight. I tried to talk to him, first with tenderness, then with desperation. "Ryan, you're missing his childhood," I said one night, standing in the kitchen, tears stinging my eyes. He hugged me, kissed my hair, and promised it was just a phase, that all this effort was to secure our future. And God, how I wanted to believe him. Until the day he just never came back. At first, I thought it was another one of those trips he'd forgotten to mention. It wasn't rare. I'd get mad, we'd argue, and then I'd let it go. But this time his phone went straight to voicemail for 3 whole days. I told Mason, "Daddy's busy, honey. He'll be back." But inside me, a dark feeling began to twist, knotting my stomach. On the fourth day, the call came, a supposed snowmobile accident in the Rockies. Thin ice, strong current, body gone. The divers couldn't recover him, they said. I remember holding the phone with one trembling hand while the other shielded Mason's face. He looked at me, confused, from the floor. I collapsed, unable to utter a single word. I thought of all the missed birthdays, the silent dinners, the lonely nights, and I hated myself for still loving him. A week later, the death certificate arrived in the mail. Cold, official, printed in stark letters that closed a chapter of my life before I was ready. I buried an empty urn because there was no body. Just a silence that enveloped me whole. And in that silence, I built walls around my heart so high that not even Mason could reach me. The morning of our flight, Mason woke up before the sun. He bounced around the house like it was Christmas morning, his small blue suitcase rattling against the hardwood floor as he yelled, "Key West, here we come!" His enthusiasm was contagious. For the first time in a long time, I felt a spark of excitement, one that wasn't tinged with guilt or nostalgia. While he ran around looking for his sunglasses and his favorite baseball cap, I checked the boarding passes, the sunscreen, the headphones, for the fifth time. Everything was there. Everything except the certainty that this was the right thing to do. What if this trip was just a fancy way of running away? What if I was overcompensating for an absence I couldn't fill? I shook my head. This wasn't the time for doubt. In the Uber to the airport, Mason rested his head on my shoulder. "Do you think they have popsicles there, Mom?" he asked, half asleep. I laughed softly. "Of course, honey. Mango and cherry if you want." I turned to the window and watched the city slowly wake up. The juice stands opening, the first school buses passing by, the streets already filling with noise. Everything seemed to be moving on without me, just as it had since Ryan died. But this time I wouldn't be left behind. We arrived at the airport in the usual chaos, people rushing with coffee cups, garbled flight announcements, endless security lines. But Mason didn't let go of my hand for a second. His little fingers clung to mine with a mix of nerves and excitement. "Are we going to fly soon?" he asked as we put our backpacks on the conveyor belt. "Almost," I replied, squeezing his hand as we walked toward the gate. A strange feeling washed over me. It wasn't sadness, but it wasn't happiness either. It was as if my soul was stretching toward an unknown place, trying to remember what it was like to live without fear, without constant pain. A part of me wanted to stop, to go back, to lock the door and keep surviving within my familiar routines and walls. But another part, a quieter, firmer one, whispered that it was time, that we deserved more than just to survive. Mason pressed his face against the waiting room window and murmured, "Look, Mom. You can see the ocean from the sky, right?" I nodded, unable to speak. "Yes. From up there, everything looks clearer, even the decisions that hurt." When boarding was announced, I took a deep breath and adjusted my backpack. This wasn't just a trip. It was a leap into the unknown. But when I saw Mason's eyes, so full of hope, so free of the past, I knew it was worth trying. We took each other's hands, and our shadows disappeared together down the boarding tunnel, heading toward the sea. The plane roared to life, and Mason's eyes widened in awe as we lifted off the ground. He pressed his nose against the window, his small fingers leaving smudges on the glass. I watched the clouds swallow the city below, feeling both lighter and heavier at the same time. Somewhere between the hum of the engines and Mason's quiet hums of excitement, I fell asleep. I dreamed of Ryan. He stood in front of me on a beach I didn't recognize, the wind tugging at his hair, his eyes hidden behind dark sunglasses. He smiled, but there was something wrong with it. Too rehearsed, too perfect. When I reached out to touch him, he stepped back, the ocean swallowing him whole. I woke with a start. Mason was watching a cartoon on the seat screen, oblivious to my unease. The flight attendant smiled and offered me coffee. I took it, though my hands trembled slightly. When we landed, the humid Key West air wrapped around us like a blanket. The salty breeze filled my lungs, and for the first time in years, I felt something close to peace. Our hotel was small but cozy, painted white with turquoise shutters. Palm trees framed the view of the ocean, and Mason immediately ran toward the pool, laughing as he splashed his feet in the water. I sat on a lounge chair, watching him. The sunlight danced on his hair, and I thought, maybe this is what healing looks like. Messy, slow, but real. That's when I saw him. First, I thought my mind was playing tricks. A man stood by the bar near the pool, his back to me. He wore a white linen shirt and khaki shorts. Something about his posture made my heart skip. He turned slightly, and for a moment I forgot how to breathe. Ryan. Well, it couldn't be. My mind had conjured his face before. In crowds, in dreams, even in the reflection of passing cars. But this was different. He was there, alive, laughing with someone, his voice, that deep, familiar tone, unmistakable even over the soft hum of resort chatter. My body went cold. The cup in my hand fell, spilling iced coffee down my leg, but I didn't feel it. I stood up slowly, as if any sudden movement might break the illusion. Mason shouted something, but his words were drowned out by the roaring in my ears. I walked toward the bar, every step heavier than the last. The man turned again, and the world stopped. Ryan's face. Older, tanner, but it was him. The same scar above his right eyebrow. The same dimple that appeared only when he smiled. And then, as if sensing me, his eyes met mine. For a moment, time folded in on itself. His smile vanished. The color drained from his face. His glass slipped from his hand and shattered on the floor. "Juliet," he whispered. The sound of my name from his lips was like a knife cutting through years of silence. I wanted to run, to scream, to hit him, to hold him. My knees trembled and my vision blurred. Took everything in me not to collapse. Mason came running over, oblivious to the storm between us. "Mom, I found seashells." Ryan's eyes dropped to him, and I saw the exact moment recognition struck. That look, that raw, unguarded emotion that no lie could fake. He swallowed hard. "Mason." My son frowned. "Do I know you?" Ryan didn't answer. He just stared, tears filling his eyes. "Mom." Mason turned to me, confused. "Why does he look like?" I couldn't let him finish. "Mason, go to the pool, honey. Please." My voice shook, but I tried to sound calm. He hesitated, sensing something was wrong, then nodded slowly and walked away. Ryan and I stood in silence for what felt like a lifetime. Finally I found my voice. "You're supposed to be dead." He looked down, running a hand through his hair. "I know. Don't you dare say I know. You." My words caught in my throat. "You left us. You let me bury you. I didn't have a choice." His tone was quiet, almost pleading. "Juliet, don't." My voice broke. "You had every choice. You could have called, written, done something." He stepped closer, his expression haunted. "If I had, you'd both be dead." Froze. "What are you talking about?" He looked around, as if afraid someone might hear. "Not here. Please. Just meet me tonight, down by the old pier past the lighthouse. I'll explain everything." I shook my head, disbelief washing over me. "No. You don't get to show up from the grave and give me riddles." He lowered his voice. "I swear to you, Juliet, if you ever trusted me, even once, you'll come. It's not just about me. It's about Mason." My chest tightened. "You stay away from him." Ryan's jaw clenched. "I'm trying to save him." Before I could say another word, a man in a black baseball cap approached Ryan, whispering something. Ryan stiffened, glanced at me with one last desperate look, and walked away. I stood there shaking. The sound of the waves was distant, muffled, unreal. When I turned around, Mason was still at the pool, waving at me with a grin that broke my heart. That night I couldn't sleep. Every sound outside, every creak, every gust of wind made me flinch. I sat by the window, staring out at the moonlit waves, my mind replaying that moment at the bar over and over again. Could Ryan really be alive? And if so, why now? At 2:17 a.m. I made my choice. I slipped out of the room, leaving Mason asleep, his small hand curled around his stuffed dolphin. I locked the door quietly and walked toward the beach. The pier loomed ahead, half lit by a flickering street lamp. Ryan stood there waiting. He looked different, older, harder, but the same eyes. "You came," he said softly. "Start talking," I snapped. He sighed, looking out at the black horizon. The day of that accident wasn't an accident. I found out things about the company, about who we were working with. Money laundering, offshore accounts tied to people you don't cross. I tried to expose them. Instead, they tried to kill me. My stomach churned. "So you disappeared." "I had to," he said. "If I had contacted you, they would have found you, and Mason. And now, they found me again," he said quietly. "And they know about you." The blood drained from my face. "I can protect you," he said. "But we need to leave tonight." I stared at him, trembling. "After 3 years of thinking you were dead, you show up and expect me to just run with you? I know how insane it sounds, Juliet, but please, trust me. For Mason." Something in his voice, the urgency, the fear, told me he wasn't lying. Closed my eyes. The waves crashed against the pier. When I opened them again, headlights flared in the distance. Ryan turned sharply. "Too late," he whispered. A black SUV sped toward us, tires screeching against the sand. Ryan grabbed my arm. "Run!" We sprinted down the beach, the night erupting with shouts and flashing lights. Mason's name burned in my mind. If anything happened to him. Ryan pulled me toward the dunes. "They won't hurt him," he said between breaths. "They need leverage." We ducked behind a lifeguard tower, gasping for air. "Juliet," he said, gripping my shoulders. "Whatever happens, take Mason and go north. There's a man named Daniels in Miami. He owes me. He'll know what to do." Before I could respond, a gunshot split the air. Ryan flinched, his hand flying to his side. "Ryan!" He staggered but stayed on his feet. "Go!" I shook my head. "I'm not leaving you again." He managed a weak smile. "You always were stubborn." Then he turned toward the lights, drawing them away from me. I ran, not because I was brave but because I had no choice. Mason needed me. By the time I reached the hotel, the sirens were already distant. I threw open the door. Mason was awake, crying, clutching his dolphin. "Mom," he whispered. I pulled him into my arms. "It's okay, baby. We're leaving." He didn't ask why. He just held on tight. As we drove away from Key West, the horizon began to glow with the first light of dawn. I didn't know if Ryan was alive or dead again, but one thing was certain. This time, I wouldn't let the past decide our future.